Brown right along ringside. By golly, we're about ready to go with more big action.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm Gordon Soler, your host, and we have quite an hour in store for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Wrestling at ringside. This is Vince McMahon, along with wrestling's only living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, another outstanding card.
Hey, guys, and welcome back to the Regional Rasslin Podcast, where we talk the territories. Welcome back, everybody, to the show. And, of course, as always, I am your host, Ray Russell. And this week, guys, we head into week number 3 here in the month of January 1985 in the Memphis Wrestling territory. And we're going to bring back guest Gene Jackson to continue on as we discuss the CWA in 1985. And this week, part of the program, lots to dive into here this week. With the Southern Tag Team Title Tournament now behind us, or not, depending on what city you live in. More on that later in the program. Also here this week, of course, it's the King, Jerry Lawler, not just on the Saturday morning program, but the Jerry Lawler Show returns as well. His in-studio guests, the Dirty White Boys. We'll also find out what happens on live TV when the top rope breaks. Hopefully there's no casualties. Also here this week on Memphis television, it's the Blonde Bomber, Kevin Kelly, who will go on to get arrested and thrown in prison down in Cobb County, Georgia. You see where I'm going with this, guys? He'll eventually return under the name NAILZ at a later date in a certain promotion. That's right, we're going to take a look at the Convict NAILZ early on in his career here, wrestling under the name Kevin Kelly. Plus a great soundbite lined up. Iron Mike Sharpe forgets what kind of match that he's involved in. Lance Russell has to correct him. You certainly don't want to miss that. And then on Monday night at the Coliseum, it's a special Night of Champions. 5 championship matches, 5 title belts on the line. Or will Mother Nature have other plans? All of that and more coming this week on Regional Rasslin. But first, just a friendly reminder, guys, that you can listen to the Regional Rasslin Podcast along with sister shows like the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF Project, as well as our program, The Wrestling Stoop, with the legend himself, Bob Roop, as Bob goes back in time and shares personal stories and memories from throughout his 20-plus years in the business, both in the ring as well as behind the scenes. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, plus some new ones coming around the corner. Stay tuned. All of them part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. Also, be sure to follow me on social media for all the latest goings-on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old-school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history, and you can start right off by following me on X, formerly the Twitter. You can follow me there at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And hey, guys, while you're at it, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel, YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade, uploading new footage all the time, including right here, 1986 UWF. We've been uploading them as we talk about them here on the show, so you guys can actually go check out the programs that we're talking about, uploading every episode of UWF TV here in 1986 in chronological order. And again, that address, youtube.com/Wrestling Grenade. Subscribe today. And hey, guys, speaking of subscriptions, now would be a fantastic time if you would consider becoming a WrestleCopia patron. You can find me there at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. And I'm talking to you guys today about that $5 all-access tier. Get you all sorts of gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed book-like show notes, pages and pages of show notes for every episode of The Grenade Show, Monday Warfare, and of course the Regional Rasslin Podcast. You also get early access to many of the podcasts here on WrestleCopia, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. Then from there, it's remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show, covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all. You also get digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, and of course, our Patreon exclusive watch-along series, covering many past WWF and WCW events, guys, and you get all of that for the low, low price of just $5. No subscription, cancel anytime, show your support. Give it a try for a month. I think you'll like the content that I offer, and every penny of it goes right back here into paying the bills, to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the wonderful shows here up and running for the months and the years to come. All right, and that's going to get us set up, guys. Here we go. Head back to 1985 in the CWA. Take a drive back in time to the Memphis territory. All right, and I can't wait to get into this one, rubbing my hands together right now with anticipation. But before we can get going, we got to do one last thing. Let's bring back the special guest co-host here this week for Memphis 1985. Without further ado, let's welcome him back yet again. Gene Jackson, welcome back to week number 3 in the Memphis territory.
Week number 3, here we go, man. It's ramping up, and so I can't wait to see what they have in store for us this week, Ray.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you here, Gene. I mean, we've been doing UWF in Georgia for a while here on regional wrestling. Memphis is kind of fresh, you know. It's the new baby in the house, and so when I'm not changing his diapers, it's pretty cool, right? So we're week number 3 already, though, and that's a good time. We've been getting in these Memphis shows when we can, and I appreciate you, man. I know you've got a lot of other things going on in your world right now, so to have you here, it's just very much appreciated.
Hey, man, I always look forward to it. You know, I love me some Memphis wrestling. Love me some WrestleCopia, so I love getting to be involved, man, and getting to talk with somebody who's equally as big a fan of this as me. And, you know, I know we're in different years, but it's funny, you know, for you, Georgia, Memphis, and UWF, while sharing a lot of the same people, are such very different territories in so many ways.
It's so weird, you know. It's like until I got to Memphis, I was going on and on about, man, I have Ted DiBiase on the Grenade. I have Ted DiBiase in Georgia. I have Ted DiBiase in the UWF. I was even to the point in the Monday Warfare show, before we put it on hiatus, it was like a week before Ted DiBiase was about to debut. So at one point he was going to be on all of my shows at the same time. And Bob Root mentions him from time to time as well. So Ted DiBiase everywhere. And then we got to Memphis and I said, well, I know his ass ain't coming here. So
it's true.
I'll give Teddy a break.
Mike Sharpe, so
we do have
almost as good.
Almost. Well, the promos here are much better than his stuff from 1981. I'll give you that. We'll get more into that as this episode goes on, guys. I promise you. But quick recap, real quick, Gene, in case you guys missed it or forgot about it. The January 13th edition of the special Sunday night Mid-South Coliseum show, the Southern Tag Team Title Tournament. The interns once again, the Southern Tag Team Champions.
That's right. You know, we had the titles held up, had a one-night tournament. We brought in the Rock and Roll Express.
Sure did.
And the interns ended up back.
still managed to regain the titles that they were the last champions. They're back champions once again, at least in the Memphis city. We'll get into that a little later too. But we're going to move on now, guys, to the following weekend, January 19th, Saturday morning, Memphis TV, Channel 5 to be exact, for more great wrestling action. Lance Russell, Dave Brown calling the action here. And as we kick off the show, we get a VTR. Woohoo! We talked about this last time. The first round match of the Southern Tag Team Title Tournament. We had wondered, how did the interns defeat the Dirty White Boys in the first round? Because we couldn't find footage of the match, but it was right here all along, right here on television, and I didn't jump ahead to find out. But it was the interns going over on the Dirty White Boys after interference from Jimmy Hart, who comes from the backstage area and gets involved there, aiding the interns in the win. We only get about 2 minutes shown here on TV of an 11-minute and 34-second match, according to Lancer. But as you suspected it, Gene, you said Jimmy Hart probably got involved, and you were right.
Well, you know, anytime that there's a possibility of Jimmy Hart getting involved, baby, he's going to do it. So I figured it was a safe bet.
Yeah, get those in while you can while he's still here. I love it.
I know. We're running thin on Jimmy Hart material now. So
yeah, and Macho Man not going to be here super long either. So I don't like that either. But we kick off the show this week. We see the VTR, and then it's straight to Troy Graham, wheelchair and all, cutting a promo, and he's out with one of his interns and Playboy Frazier. as well as the interns have regained the Southern Tag Team titles. Troy showing off his legal pair of brass knuckles here, actually a custom-made brass ring to fit every finger on his hand. I thought that was pretty clever.
That is indeed a legal set of brass knuckles. So well played by Dr. Troy.
Nobody ever stole that. I was surprised after I saw this. Why didn't anybody ever steal that idea? I love it.
Well, leave it to Troy Graham to be forward thinking like that and come up with something nobody else did.
He was quite the thinker indeed. As Graham claims one of his interns is in surgery. So we get the Playboy here instead in his place for the tag team matchup upcoming. Now, at first, I thought he meant that one of the interns was hurt. He was in surgery. But I guess he meant, he was performing surgery because he's an intern.
I love that. That's really fun, rather than leaving it a mystery or just being like, hey, he didn't make the town or whatever. Like, yeah, of course, the intern's in surgery. Where else would he be?
I didn't catch that right away. I actually didn't catch that till I went back over my notes. And I said, maybe he meant, oh, yeah, that makes more sense. He was aiding in surgery. I got you now. As we head off to the ring, it's going to be intern number 1. That's Don Bass here today on the show, teaming with Playboy Frazier. Shake those nuggets off. They're going to be managed by Troy Graham for this matchup, taking on Johnny Wilhoit and David Haskins back for week number 2, glutton for punishment. As we see Graham rolling all around ringside in that wheelchair, Wilhoit gets the better of the intern early on. Then the Playboy going to tag in, immediately taken over, and some really awful offense here. Comical offense, however, by the Playboy in this one. As Haskins finally tagged in for the first time in the babyface side, but he eats a corner buckle and a nasty knee lift. Don Bass really let him have it there. And Frazier back in, as I'm pretty sure I hear a fan yell, "Moo!" at the Playboy as he re-enters the ring here. Haskins knocked into his own corner, and he gets the hot tag out to Wilhoit. But before we get to the finish of this matchup, just what a weird dynamic, Playboy Frazier and one of the interns. It's Memphis. You just slide them right in there, right?
Yeah, and as much as I enjoyed the pairing of exotic Adrian Street and Playboy Frazier, I equally did not enjoy the pairing of the intern. I don't know, it just didn't feel the same. But I can tell you this, since you made a note of it, at one point in Corinth, Mississippi, in 1999, I believe it was, I was on the receiving end of a Don Bass knee lift. And, it's something, let me tell you.
A little bit snug?
Oh, to say the least. Rattled my teeth.
In 99, huh? Wow. Don Bass still throwing that knee lift? My God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
wow.
He was a weekly staple of Rodney Grimes' CWA in Corinth, Mississippi, along with his manager, Honest John. And he was the ringleader of Bass's posse, along with Big Hoss Williams.
Going to go out on a limb and say Honest John wasn't very honest at all.
He was not. Okay, he was the exact opposite. But boy, he was colorful. He was a tall, skinny guy who in real life was the manager of a pizza inn in West Memphis, Arkansas, which, is right around the corner from Greasy Corner, Arkansas, as luck would have it. But man, he wore these crazy yellow and green suits that came from the Urban store that looked like something the Godfather would wear. And he's out there with Outlaw Don Bass. It was quite the pairing.
I got to find me a few of those, some Michael Hayes pimp suits. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
I'll tell you what, man, David Haskins, he looked pretty good for his first match ever last week. And again, like I said, he's no Ricky Steamboat, but he looked good. I mean, for his first time ever in a ring, having a real matchup there. And apparently he does well enough that he keeps his job. He's back here again for week number 2 and not looking too bad in the ring. However, boy, we get this hot tag out to Johnny Wilhoit and things just come apart here as Wilhoit going to send Stan Frazier into the corner, mount him in the corner for the old 10 punches of doom. And this goes on seemingly forever, Gene. And it gets to the point where it's just absolutely ridiculous. Stan's starting to lose his balance, slipping down, sliding down in the corner as Johnny Wilhoit just kind of standing there. I don't even think he's punching him by the end of this sequence. As meanwhile, the intern, he takes David Haskins outside the ring behind the referee's back. The referee busy with Frazier and Wilhoit. So Graham, still seated in the wheelchair, blasting Haskins with the steel chair shot. Then the intern rolling David back inside. And never mind the fact that neither man is legal, Gene. The intern makes the cover and gets the win. Match goes 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Welcome to wrestling. David Haskins, a chair shot in only his second matchup here on TV.
Chair shot from a manager in a wheelchair.
It doesn't get any better. It
Like
doesn't
you
get any
said,
more
welcome-
Memphis either, right?
I was just about to say, not only welcome to wrestling, but more specifically, welcome to Memphis Wrestling.
There you
David
go.
Haskins.
I love that adjective. Isn't it great that Memphis can be an adjective here on this show? Welcome to Memphis
absolutely
Wrestling,
is.
David Haskins. But I look
Yeah,
back
that
at
corner spot was awkward. It's so awkward. Like, I guess they just assumed at that point, hopefully nobody was watching them. Because like you
With
said,
the
it's
camera's
all
right on the
action
ring.
seized. He's no longer throwing punches. Frazier's just kind of slipped down the corner, and they're just kind of standing there, D in hand, waiting for the action to unfold on the outside.
Now there's something else on this show. I invite everybody to go to my YouTube and watch, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But while you're at it, before you get there, why don't you stop and watch the finish of this matchup? Because you got to blame Will Hoyt and Frazier, but at the same time you can't, because they're kind of waiting for the finish. It's like, okay, this is what we're going to do going into the finish. They didn't plan for the finish to take nearly as long as it did, I guess. And they're just kind of like, okay, what do we do now? They could have done something else, but they opted not to. And Stan Frazier had been around the business far too long. He should have known better, but he just kind of
I'm
lays
sure
there.
Frazier was completely blown up in the corner, couldn't do anything. Will Hoyt didn't know what to do, so that's what we got.
Perhaps it wasn't a fan shouting moo. Maybe it was just Stan himself. I don't really know. As we roll on with the show, guys, Jimmy Hart now joining Troy Graham for another promo. I wrote, oh, baby, baby. As Lance Russell quips, one of them is bad enough, but it's baby squared out here, Jimmy Hart and Troy Graham, as they sell the upcoming Mid-South Coliseum matchup. It's the interns, once again taking on the Dirty White Boys. The Southern Tag Team titles on the line, but also, should the White Boys win, they get 5 minutes with manager Jimmy Hart. As Jimmy Hart says, he found the White Boys working in a Walgreens right up here in Cleveland. How about that, Gene? He found them a year ago. I wrote, funny, I don't remember we having a Walgreens in Cleveland back in 1984, but maybe I'm wrong. Anywho, Jimmy talks about managing Dream and Pork Chop Cash to the titles when he managed them, but the Dirty White Boys, they just didn't cut the mustard. So Hart then handing off $1,000 to Troy Graham here to make sure that the Dirty White Boys don't get the 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart. And I had to ponder whether he gave them the grand or not. Don't you think the interns had planned to keep the title belts? So it seemed like Jimmy was just throwing away money here.
Yeah, that sometimes the logic doesn't exactly line up, but
Well, they had to, I guess that extra incentive, I suppose, is what they were going for here in the minds of the fans anyway. But just as Jimmy Hart says that he's always got the back of, can you do that? Tell Troy Graham you've got his back, baby. Always got his back, baby.
Troy, baby, I've always got your back, baby. I've always got your back, baby. Don't worry about it, baby. We got this, baby.
And as Jimmy says that, no sooner than he says that, out come the Dirty White Boys. And the first thing Jimmy Hart does, he goes running off, Gene. You got to love that heel stuff there. I got your back. I always got your back, baby. And then Jimmy Hart is gone out of the studio, maybe into the parking lot. I don't know. Leaving Troy Graham.
I'll be in the back, baby. Way in the back, baby.
Leaving Troy Graham in the studio all by himself in a wheelchair to take on the Dirty White Boys here, as the boys going to confront Troy, who stuffed his $1,000 down into his crotch. I wrote LMAO. Well, I don't really know the reasoning for that, but Lynn Denton, Tony Anthony threatening to put a whipping on Troy Graham here, but Jimmy Hart finally does return, and he brings with him the intern and Playboy Frazier. But the Dirty White Boys, they look at that team, and much like you, they weren't really impressed. So they grab a couple of steel chairs and run the heels off. In the process, taking one tag team title belt, which is the only one that was here today on the show.
Yeah, I guess the other intern was wearing his while assisting with surgery, it would seem.
Maybe they were using it like as the plate, where they put all the tools and things on for the doctor, using the title belt. Yeah, I don't know where the other championship belt was. Maybe Roger Smith really was carrying it with him. I'm not sure, but yeah, there was only one tag team title belt here today. It was pretty damn obvious.
The doctor was like, "Sir, can I see your credentials?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm a Southern Tag Team Champion, sir."
Multiple times under many masks. Yeah, there you go. So
there you go.
We go on, more action in the ring. We just saw them come out here. It's the Dirty White Boys taking on Pat Hutchinson and Big Bill Rose. And here we go, Gene. The boys have their way with Rose early on here. Pat Hutchinson refusing to tag in. And Bill kind of looks lost in there, by the way, guys. But the Dirty White Boys eventually shooting Big Bill into the ropes. Well, they don't call him Big Bill for nothing, because the fucking corner buckle snaps off the ring post. The entire fucking top rope collapses as Rose goes tumbling like a crash test dummy upside down backwards over the top rope, or at least where the top rope used to be, and onto his head on the studio floor, I wrote, holy shit, because I've seen the rope break before. I've seen people fall out of the ring during these kind of spots, but that was one of the scarier bumps, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, that's absolute worst case scenario if the rope breaks. Like if somebody asked on the first day of training, like, well, what happens if the rope breaks? Like that's, well, the worst case, you could come down right on top of your freaking head and possibly break your neck, or you might just fall to the floor. And yeah, and I've seen that happen one other time to a guy, and there was not a single time the rest of my life that I ever ran towards a ring rope that I thought, oh my God, don't let this snap, and would grab it for dear life. And it was this bump here and the one I seen somebody take in Saltillo, Mississippi, that always ran through my head like, oh God, don't let that happen to me because this will kill me.
Yeah, it was probably 21, 22 years ago. A buddy of mine, Leo, was hitting the ropes in training, and he was, a good worker. And he was hitting the ropes in training, and the top rope snapped. It broke. And, he did the little backflip thing, and they actually had padding on the floor on the outside, which was, a good deal. But obviously, just taking that bump alone, hitting the apron and whatnot. But, as soon as he did that, the trainer, he looks at us and goes, and that's why you put your arm over the top rope when you hit the ropes. Because you see those guys every once in a while that aren't trained, that just keep their arms to their sides. If that top rope broke and you didn't have that protection of that arm, holding onto that rope, you want to talk about fatal. I don't know about fatal, but you could certainly a lot worse injury involved.
Absolutely. And even if the rope doesn't break, I don't know how many times I've seen it to where somebody hits the ropes and they don't grip the rope like that. Like you say, if they just keep their arms down their side, that rope slides up their shoulders and hits them right in the back of the neck, and snaps their head. So it's super dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. It's a little more than just run towards the ropes and bounce off of them if
right.
for the untrained.
So, anywho, this guy gets tossed into the ropes and the top rope completely snaps off the buckle. I'm not talking about where the rope breaks and it kind of slumps down. We've seen that before. I mean, it completely snaps off the post. So there's no more top rope at all. And this guy goes flying upside down backwards all the way out to the floor. Pat Hutchinson immediately goes out to check on Rose. And for a split second, if you go back and watch it, you can even see the Dirty White Boys as the bump is going on. They actually take a step forward towards Bill. A little bit concerned there, even from the Dirty White Boys, but then they get back into character. As Rose does recover on the outside, he will eventually get back to the apron, try to get back in the ring multiple times, but the referee's like, no. So Rose just kind of stands there as the Dirty White Boys take over on Hutchinson from there. Now, Pat never tagged in, mind you guys, but Pat does manage a series of fiery punches on Lynn Denton. But the White Boys come back and land their double Russian leg sweep, going to score the win, 3 minutes and 18 seconds. And Bill Rose tries to re-enter the ring after the matchup, again being held back as we get a slow motion replay of that nasty bump. I wrote, insult to injury, Gene.
Yeah, absolutely. And, kudos to Rose for trying to re-enter the ring, man. I would have laid on the floor and played dead until they carried me out. And I'm sure as ugly as that bump looked, I'm sure Jarrett would have preferred that, honestly, for realism's sake. But,
sure. I was wondering, I was thinking, do you think Jerry Lawler or somebody said, something to him when he came, man, you should have just laid out there. But, this is big Bill Rose's, his big break, right? He's never been here as far as I remember anyway, at least not in a long time. And he gets here on Memphis TV and, he's in the ring for about 30 seconds before he's knocked on his ass literally on the outside. And maybe he's like, man, I got to get back in there. This is my big chance.
Yeah, I'm sure he was in shock. He probably didn't know exactly what had happened. And I'm sure he was just excited that he was able to get back to his feet. Wasn't really thinking of ring psychology at the time. So it is what it is.
Well, this is not a WWF TV taping, guys. This is live TV. So as we come back from break, we see some random people out there, maybe some janitors, attempting to fix the ring as they try to reattach the turnbuckle cable to the ring post. I wrote, good luck with that. So we spend some time by running down the January 21st Mid-South Coliseum card. Lance Russell also plugging the wrestling hotline. It's a local hotline, guys. Call it now, 685-6969. Actually, I don't recommend you guys call that. I'm not sure who owns that number now. But I didn't know they had a wrestling hotline all the way back in the mid-'80s for Memphis Wrestling.
Man, I wish we could have got some good pitches from Lance Russell a la Mean Gene back in the day. I would love to hear Lance teasing some stuff for the hotline.
Yeah, call the hotline. I would have loved that. Yeah, well, hell, Lance was even in WCW when they had the hotline. I would love to just have him pitch the number one time. 1-900-909-9900. That would have been awesome. But yeah, Lance Russell inviting everybody to call the Memphis Wrestling Hotline. If I lived down there, I would have been calling that thing. It's a local number. and I would have been putting a tape recorder right up there and collecting all of those. I wonder if somebody did that. That would have been awesome if anybody has any of those old wrestling hotline recordings.
Oh my gosh, I would love to see that turn up. I have to admit that I called several times in 1988 to vote for Jackie Fargo as the referee for Jerry Lawler and Kurt Hennig in the AWA World Title match.
It was you.
So you're welcome, guys. I helped get that done.
Taking the belt away from Mr. Perfect. As we roll on, we get the old Terry Taylor freeze frame video, one of the most favorite videos of Roman Gomez. Got to send a big thanks out there to Joel Watts for that one. Terry Taylor slated to defend the international title versus Adrian Street this Monday night. And then from there, we get the exotic one here in a promo with Miss Linda by his side. Street boasting holding a championship in 37 different countries. The Sheepherders did that too in the UWF. But now Adrian, he has beaten Terry Taylor before, we got to remember, in the Mid-South territory for the TV title there just 4 months prior to this. So at least they're familiar with each other.
Couple things that clicked in my head because I remembered you and Roman having some fun with the Sheepherders talking about 37 different countries.
Right.
And as soon as that came out of the Street's mouth, I was like, what is it with the 37 different countries? But also, I'm sure they had that video queued up because we had the Terry Taylor Adrian Street match coming up. But in my head, in the back, somebody's like, oh my God, the ring's broke. We got to stretch. And somebody's like, put on the freeze frame video.
Freeze frame. Absolutely.
It's just always there on cue, just waiting for something to happen. Like, well, we always get the freeze frame video to go to.
Well, something went wrong. It's the freeze frame video again. Even Vince McMahon one week, he should have aired that just so it made the rounds everywhere. And
it's every territory.
every territory. So, but Adrian Street cutting a promo here. He's going to challenge Terry Taylor for the international title. Pretty basic interview here. But you have to think, we talked about what was the reasoning for putting the belt on Terry Taylor? What was that, the last week of December, first week of January, whatever that was? Because he doesn't come back and drop it until July. But this answers the question, at least for me. You have to presume with Taylor leaving to go back to the Mid-South that he was supposed to drop the belt here to Adrian Street. Now, why that doesn't happen, we'll get to that later in the program, but that seems to be likely what they had planned.
Yeah, I've mentioned before that even as a kid, I was very over-analytical of things. And so as a kid, it bothered me why the Southern title was treated as a more important championship than the international championship. I used to ask my friends about that. But I was a big enough mark that I assumed the reason Terry Taylor could disappear for months is he's off going all over the world defending that international title. He's out of the country right now.
There you go.
Meanwhile, it was sitting on Jerry Jarrett's desk, I'm sure, until
probably in a drawer.
All right, we can get Taylor again. Pull the old international title out, just like they would whip out the old Mid-America belt at random times, as needed.
Yeah, like here with Mike Sharpe.
Yep.
Well, you did say as needed. I don't know that I would call that needed, but
well, they're like, well, Mike Sharpe, what's he got? Well, he's got that armband on. Like, let's throw this belt on.
Give him a belt.
Maybe somebody will give a shit. Not likely, but maybe.
Sometimes they say a wrestler doesn't need a belt because they're over. They used to say, well, Jake the Snake never needed a belt because he was over. He didn't need the WWF title. Well, you could say Mike Sharpe never needed a title either, but for a very different reason.
Mike Sharpe could have had more belts than the Ultimo Dragon, and nobody would have gave a shit.
I'll tell you what, Jamie Ward, I know you listen to some of those shows in the Georgia shows, and Jamie Ward defends Mike Sharpe to no end. And I don't get it.
I don't either. I love it, though. And it tickles me. I always wonder, like, okay, is this a rib? Is this like Jamie just playing a role here?
No, Jamie's just a good guy that defends everybody. Like, he even started the Mr. Personality thing with Steve-O, and then I picked it up and ran with it, and now he's like, oh, don't do that to Steve. So,
oh, no, I just get such a kick out of, like, how whenever you dunk on Steve-O, he's just like, you can tell he's genuine. Because that's where I was going with that. I thought at first it was a bit, but then hearing the genuine disappointment in his voice whenever you make fun of Steve-O, it's like, oh man, come on. I don't care about you messing with Steve, but don't hurt Jamie's feelings over here. That's terrible.
Well, we recorded a show and he hadn't listened to the last Memphis show yet, but he did afterwards, like a day or two later, and he texted me out of the blue. He goes, oh man, you got to sing that Steve-O song on the next Georgia show. I was like, So we'll see. I can't wait to find Jamie's kryptonite. One day we're going to get to a wrestler in Georgia and he's going to be like, I don't like that guy. And I can't wait to see who it is. I can't wait to hear the reason.
I am intently waiting to see who on earth that could be, because, I mean, he even puts over Ken Patera. Jesus.
Well, I think Kenny was a great heel in that period in time. Maybe not so much later, but in that period of time,
Yeah.
I enjoyed Ken Patera. He was a lot more slender and he moved around a lot better. But yeah, we'll get back to Memphis, guys. I do apologize, but like you pointed it out, this is wrestlers crossing over from a lot of the different shows here as we head into a commercial break. And it's Jerry the King Lawler pimping Mid-South Builders. I wrote, is there anything local that he didn't shill?
Not much, man. I have to think that almost every local business is like, all right, who can we get to advertise? And somebody's like, Jerry Lawler, we got to get the King. And they're like, all right, let's see if we can afford him.
So he's got everything from free tanning to free building, it would appear here. Free car work. Yeah, everything. So Jerry Lawler's got it made here. I don't need to tell you guys that. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know there. But when we come back from the commercial break, the ring's still being fixed, presumably. We got the freeze frame video. They don't play it again, sadly, there, Gene. But instead, we do get an Adrian Street, I'm in Love with Me music video. I love this one. The first one I ever saw, actually, Street had a lot of different music videos, but this was the first one for me, probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's a favorite for me, too. I was always very amused by these Adrian Street videos, perhaps most by There's Something Very Strange About a Cowboy is another funny one for me as well. But Street was just entertaining on so many levels.
No, I loved him. The only part that kind of freaked me out as a kid was the bubble bath segment of the video. But
yeah, it was a little early on Saturday morning for that one in Memphis. But.
Yeah. Well, you grew up in regions where you got to see Adrian Street at a young age. I did not. I grew up, up in Ohio, so I got Georgia Championship Wrestling. I got the WWF, and that was pretty much it, early on until cable broke in there and whatnot. So my first ever visual sight of Adrian Street, and I don't know if you've ever saw this movie, it's called Grunt, the wrestling movie. It came out around 1985. Oh, yeah. And I actually owned it on tape. It wasn't selling off the shelves at the local video rental store. So they decided to sell it. They put it under a little glass case, and it was for like $5. I bought that shit. I'd never seen it before, but I bought that shit. I brought it home. I probably watched that movie at least a couple dozen times. I will admit that, guys. You go check it out. It's a very interesting movie, but Adrian Street all over that movie. And I was like, wow, I was fascinated with this guy. And I knew he existed. I'd seen him in the magazines, but that was my first look at him. And I was like, wow, this guy's awesome.
I suggest at some point in time we do a watch along of Grunt, but that's just me.
No, I haven't watched that movie in probably 20 years, but I bet you as we watch it, I'll remember every line in that movie. That's an excellent idea. We will do that. We will do a video cast of Grunt, the wrestling movie. That would be phenomenal. Awesome. Great idea.
Awesome.
Man, I've been meaning to watch that again. Now you just gave me a great reason. So, coming soon, guys. Stay tuned for that. But right now, it's debut time as we see the Blonde Bomber, Kevin Kelly, taking on Ken Raper here. It's our first look at the future NAILZ in the Memphis territory, Kevin Wackles, who has been in the business maybe a year at best at this point. So we've got a guy on one side who once actually cried rape versus a guy on the other side who is confirmed to be a raper, if you will.
Indeed. Indeed we do.
So Kevin Kelly with lots of old-fashioned clubbering here, make Dusty Rhodes proud. A whole lot of forearms across the back, some stomping, couple of basic moves thrown in, but working that slow, plodding New York style that made him famous as NAILZ. But finally, it's the shoulder breaker of doom, followed by an elbow drop, awkward. But it's going to give Kevin Kelly the win, 3 minutes and 18 seconds. I wrote, that wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but Kelly visibly extremely green still.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because, you think about, I didn't realize how long he had been wrestling when I first saw him. I guess I first saw him as Mr. Magnificent in AWA, and I thought he was just starting out then, and that was, 87 or so. So I was kind of surprised later on to find out he had been around as long as he had, and even then, and then all the way up to when he was NAILZ, wasn't all that different. Like, he kind of
still just a bunch of clubbering.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed. But Kevin Kelly's here, at least for the time being. NAILZ has arrived in the Memphis territory, guys. As we roll on, Jimmy Hart back out with the Mid-American champion, Iron Mike Sharpe. They're out here for a promo Is Sharpe going to talk about beating Jimmy Valiant in the recent Coward Waves the Flag matches, claiming that he had beat Valiant down so bad with his forearm brace that the corner man threw in the flag? Now, he didn't say Jerry Lawler, he said corner man, so I can't verify that part of the storyline, but I found it interesting that Lance Russell agreed when Mike Sharpe said, I beat him down with my forearm brace and I forced him to throw in the towel. Lance kind of gave that, all right, you won the match kind of ordeal there. So we wondered how that finish happened, and we thought there were shenanigans involved, but it sounds like Mike Sharpe just loaded that brace and knocked Jimmy Valiant silly. Now, I can't confirm Lawler wound up being the corner man or not in this, but it's at least we got an answer here.
Well, I know in some of the house shows, didn't in some of those promos, didn't Lawler confirm that, I'm going to be out there in Jimmy Valiant's corner, and then I'm coming back out for a barbed wire match with Eddie Gilbert. So I know around the loop he did. I don't know if he was at the Coliseum, but
no, I
would assume so.
I think he was advertised for all of them. I'm just wondering if something happened storyline-wise on the card to where Lawler couldn't make it out there or something.
And Johnny Wilhoit's out there throwing in the towel.
Johnny Wilhoit throwing in the towel. Oh, man. So they sell it here in Memphis, Mike Sharpe being from Canada and all, that his forearm injury actually came from playing hockey. And I thought they were just joking at first when they said that, but no, that's the story here. He got injured playing hockey, and I wrote, there's just something about Mike Sharpe on ice skates. I don't know, Gene.
Wow, what could be more stereotypical than a Canadian who got injured playing hockey? I mean, but what else could it be, right?
What a visual. The big lumbering Mike Sharpe on ice skates. Oh, man. Good stuff. So anyways, here we go. The promo goes on, and Mike Sharpe, he begins to sell a stretcher match, an upcoming stretcher match against the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, Handsome Jimmy, in the big stretcher match upcoming this Monday night at the Coliseum. Problem is, Lance Russell has to correct him. Let's listen to the promo.
Okay, we're going to be in the ring here in just a moment. We got a super tag match coming up. You're going to see Big Iron Mike Sharpe and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert teaming together to go against the team of the Batten twins, Mark and Brad. Ought to be a real scrap. Size on one side, and here's Big Iron Mike Sharpe, holder of the Mid-America Heavyweight title match.
That's right, Mid-America. That's right. I understand this handsome Jimmy Valiant has been stupid enough to put his John Henry on the line to get in the ring with Iron Mike. It seems like he hasn't had enough of this. I clobbered him pretty good in Memphis recently. So badly, the guy had to give up. His corner gave up. They're waving that flag. You think something? You saw it. Everybody there saw it. They waved the flag. They couldn't take it. This big right arm right here just couldn't take it. Look at that arm, 20 inches of power. I was hammering him right and left all over the ring. He didn't know if he was coming or going. He didn't know if he was up or down, he was inside or outside. And I'll guarantee you, he wants to get in there, and he wants this stretcher. What do they call this, a stretcher match? Is this what they call this?
You got a title on the line, I know that.
Okay, it's not a stretcher match. This is a title match right here.
Wow. Mike Sharpe, a little confused there, doesn't realize what matchup he's in. He doesn't know where he's coming or going, what week it is, what town he's headed to. But I just love that because he said, is that what it is? Is that what it's called? It's a stretcher match, right, Lance? And Lance goes, no, it's actually a title match. Oh, okay, it's not a stretcher match. It's a title match. I just wrote LMAO. So it was insane.
So do you think that's a case of he looked at the wrong week on the booking sheet, perhaps, that maybe there's a stretcher match coming up in the next round, or that's just a complete screw up on his part? Or
spoiler is I think he has a stretcher match this week in Nashville and Louisville. I think Louisville, but I know he does have stretcher matches upcoming, but not at the Mid-South Coliseum, and he should know that the main arena match. But it's like, I'm having a stretch. No, it's a title match. Oh, okay. But it wasn't so much that he screwed up. If they just moved on, it was the way he sold it. Oh, okay, it's not a stretcher match; it's a title match. Like he just, okay.
We've talked about that, about how hard it must have been to keep all that straight. And I'm sure, if they'd just been shooting one of those, promos in the dressing room with Lance, they would have just stopped and started over. But we're live, like you said, we're live on the Saturday morning, so he just has to look like a dumbass on TV.
Yeah. Instead, we get this.
He wants to get in there, and he wants this stretcher. What do they call this, a stretcher match? Is this what they call this?
You got a title on the line, I know that.
Okay, it's not a stretcher match. This is a title match right here. Mid-American.
I love how he sells it. Oh, okay, it's not a stretcher match. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, because most people, a lot of guys, I want to think like Eddie Gilbert would be like, well, he better be glad it's not a stretcher match, because if it was, he'd be on the stretcher. But he's like, oh, okay, my bad.
I mean,
he
even
was
no
almost
sell
apologetic.
it. Even no sell it. Oh, no, it's a title match. Oh, all right. Well, no matter what, instead he has to his sell job is just amazing. Just amazing. As we go on, Mike Sharpe steps aside for good reason, and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert comes in, and Eddie, the innovator of visuals, I like to call him now here, between the UWF and Memphis Wrestling, whatever you want to call it anyway. Last time, it was a poster board and a boombox for the This Is Your Life Jerry Lawler segment. This week, Hot Stuff out here with another smaller poster with the rules of a Texas death match written out here. I wrote, I teased the Memphis budget, Gene, but without chyrons and all that video technology to use, Eddie Gilbert does do his best to get shit over. He wants to do whatever he can to make his program a success. And you got to give him credit for that.
You do. And the most fun thing to me about it is looking back on it years later, having seen tons of Jerry Lawler artwork and tons of programs that I know Jerry Lawler designed. These signs that Eddie Gilbert are holding each week have been drawn by Jerry Lawler.
Yeah. I saw, I didn't put two and two together, but as you said that, I re-envisioned the This Is Your Life Jerry Lawler poster and the top of this Texas Deathmatch Rules poster. And you're I knew where you were going once you got halfway there. So you're absolutely right. Jerry Lawler drawing Eddie Gilbert's posters for him. Amazing. If people only knew back then.
Absolutely. That's just fun facts there.
So we head back to the ring. More tag team action here. Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert teaming with Iron Mike Sharpe. They're going to have Jimmy Hart in their corner, taking on the Batten twins, Brad and Mark Batten. And the Battens take control early on Eddie Gilbert until Mike Sharpe catches one of them in the back of the head with his forearm O'Doom. And the heels go to town on Batten Brad. Lots of tags by the heels here. Lots of mauling. They dominate while Jimmy Hart puts them over on commentary during this one. At one point, Mike Sharpe comes outside the ring and launches Brad Batten over the announce desk mid-match, seemingly for no reason at all. But I wrote, man, was it fun.
Yeah, it was so random, like you said, just because of the timing of it. A lot of, over the years, we've seen matches get out of control and, somebody's ended up getting heaved over the announce table and it goes, everything just breaks down from there and the match ends. But to do it in the middle of the match, then he just ends up throwing him back in and we continue on was so random, especially being Mike Sharpe being the one. You expect that from the Moondogs or even the interns, but not Mike Sharpe.
No, definitely not Mike Sharpe. It was like the most unnecessary time I've ever seen somebody whipped over the announce desk. Usually I pop for it. This time I was like, get him back in the ring. I don't want to see this mess. So they are back inside the ring here.
Judging by how the way you handled that promo, Mike would have apologized to you had he heard you say that. I'm
sorry about that. Let me take a shower and we'll talk about it after the fact. Is back inside the ring, Eddie Gilbert going to try for a couple of Jerry Lawler fist drops throughout the matchup. He's actually going to miss them, but he doesn't really sell it. Kind of weird. But a nice power slam here from Eddie as he tags back to Iron Mike as we are now 8 minutes into this match on TV, and the heels have had control for the last 7 of those 8. But the crowd's still into this, cheering for the Batten twins. As Brad Batten finally musters up some energy, begins fighting back on Mike Sharpe, bringing Gilbert into the ring, thus bringing Mark Batten into the ring as well, as it's now a 4-way melee, and the heels collide center ring. This leading to Jimmy Hart distracting the official, and Playboy Frazier coming back to ringside, holding a chair up by the ropes. You love that spot. As Gilbert going to send one of the Batten's heads right into the chair held by Frazier, and finally the heel's going to score the win, 8 minutes and 57 seconds.
My biggest note from the match, and I'm sure you noticed this too, is like it's a 9-minute match, 9-minute TV match that's treated mostly like a squash match.
Right? Yeah.
They control 8 minutes of it. There's numerous times, I'll say numerous, but more than once, they went for a cover, picked the Batten up off the mat when they could have pinned them, and then they end up needing interference to get the win, which I understand is all about keeping the Battens, deal going with Playboy Frazier. But just what a weird way to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't see that finish coming. I didn't expect the Battens to win, but I thought we would get that little hot tag, come back, and boom, the heels go over. Maybe they cheat, which is fine. But adding Playboy Frazier to the mix, it just seemed like overkill, really, after dominating the match. Like you said, a squash match, basically, for 8 of the 9 minutes here.
I can say I profess to be this huge fan of Memphis Wrestling, and I am, but I mean, we're 3 weeks in, and I've spent more time scratching my head than anything, and I'm starting to question, like, well, some of this booking isn't as good as I remember. But maybe
I feel like we're
getting to
just
the good
in a
stuff.
lull right now. It's just a lull, the reset. We talked about this off air before. I'm paraphrasing here, but you said something like, man, I hope these people don't listen to these first few episodes with the talent and think, is this what Memphis is all about? Because we're just, a lot of the guys have just left town, and we're kind of waiting for things to pick back up here, which it will soon. But it's just, we're waiting for that right now, and we're kind of having fun with what we got to work with. And sometimes it's, just Playboy Frazier. And that's just the way it is right now. But,
and 9-minute basic squash matches.
Yeah, not even a hot tag. They didn't even do the hot tag spot. I mean, just Mark Batten came in, and they went to the finish. But I wrote second tag team match in a row here that the illegal man scores a win. Do better, Jerry Calhoun.
Yes, Jerry. Focus more on your refereeing duties than your job at Federal Express.
What is this, AEW?
Hey now.
Well, I'd make the joke that we're going to lose some listeners, but ain't no AEW fans listening to this show anyway. So
no one who is entertained by AEW gives a damn about Memphis from 1985. We are safe, I promise you.
So I made this observation on my own here as this match came to a conclusion. I wrote, what was great about Eddie Gilbert was, obviously he was a great worker, great psychology, great talker. So his size, it didn't deter him from main eventing against the likes of Jerry Lawler. But at the same time, he was so good in the ring as a wrestler, and a bit on the smaller side, obviously, that he could still get in the ring with a Johnny Wilhoit or the Battens, and you didn't really bat an eye. Like, it wasn't like, why is he having trouble with these guys? Like, Eddie made everything work when he got in the ring, whether it was Lawler or Johnny Wilhoit.
Yeah, he really did. He's a lot better worker than he's given credit for by a lot of people. And I guess it was strictly because of his size why so many people like Watts and everybody, seemed to lean more towards wanting to make him a manager. But, here in Memphis, he was as good as anybody ever was. So I'm glad he got the, chance to showcase that here. And he got plenty of opportunities other places. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, I think a lot of people it took a time to see past his size or lack thereof a lot of times to take him seriously, especially as a heel.
Boy, Memphis usually promo heavy anyway, but as I look through my notes here, man, the next 3 segments, just all promos here as we continue on. It's the Playboy Frazier, Stan Frazier, the future Uncle Elmer, with Jimmy Hart out here right after their shenanigans here in that last tag team matchup. The Playboy downplays his interference in the previous match, and he calls Lance, "You nana-nosed nut." I had to pop for that one. I ain't cheating. What you talking about, you nana-nosed nut?
That is a distinctly Playboy Frazier statement right there. I like.
So the Playboy putting down the Battens, referring to them as 2 midgets that can't beat him. In fact, 10 midgets can't beat him. I'd like to have seen that matchup as the fans begin to chant "Pigpen." And you got to love those Memphis fans. What a creative chant there. Pigpen.
Yeah, I could see a Playboy Frazier versus 10 midgets match happen. I'm not going to look ahead to see, but I can certainly see that be foreshadowing, a possibility.
Hey, that goes back to Grunt the wrestling movie. I believe there's a matchup with like 4 or 5 midgets against the Mask. So, we'll get some of that. But yeah,
don't worry, folks, it's coming.
I heard the fans chanting. I go, are they chanting Pigpen? Because I'm not familiar with that chant, if that's a ongoing thing with Playboy Frazier here in the territory. But he actually says, they call me Pigpen again. So I said, oh my God, that is what they're saying. All right. So very intriguing here as we go on. A Jerry the King Lawler promo finally gracing us with the King here on the Memphis Wrestling studio this week. As Lance, still disgusted with Jimmy Hart and crew after what we just saw the moments before this, as the King going to join the show, Lance and Lawler encourage the fans not to get involved in the wrestling matches. Just call the Wimpbusters.
Yes. Ghostbusters was a phenomenon at the time and was huge. And of course, as they tended to do when something was huge in pop culture and big around the world, they would find a way to implement it in Memphis, and Wimpbusters was their answer.
Who you going to call? Wimpbusters. And of course, Jimmy Hart, the biggest wimp of them all. But yeah, it's just odd out of the blue. They bring that up. Hey, don't try this at home and don't get involved in the matches, fans. So you have to think somebody recently, maybe got involved in a match.
Absolutely. There's no telling people down there, at Memphis, so they take our wrestling seriously.
They sure do.
I'm more than likely it was probably somebody going after Jimmy Hart, if I had to guess.
Well, that would be my guess as well. Certainly got the heat for it. Up next, Lawler, it's time to talk the Texas Death Match as the King will take on Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert for the Southern title. Lawler reiterating the rules as he sells the Texas Death Match. He says it could go on all night long. So pack a lunch, Eddie Gilbert. Wouldn't that be dinner?
Yeah, that's definitely a late lunch. So.
Supper in the South, right? That's what my grandparents called it.
Absolutely, we eat supper. My dad always called lunch dinner.
Yes, that's what my grandparents did. Yeah, it confused me as a kid. Yeah, and then I would go to school and say these things, and people would look at me like I'm crazy.
Me too.
I called a shopping cart a buggy. Yeah, I don't know. I had to explain myself at school a few times with the Southern vocabulary versus up here in Ohio. Not so much.
Yes, my ex-wife was from Cleveland, Ohio, and I had to hear about. She moved to Alabama, but she wanted me to conform to speak like I was in Ohio, and 9 years of just pure joy.
Is it soda or pop, or what is it down there?
Oh man, it's Coke. Everything's Coke. It doesn't matter what it is, it's Coke. But at the very least, it's soda. Nothing is pop.
Okay.
And we had that debate many a time.
Well, when you said she was from Cleveland, yeah. When you said Cleveland and you had a debate, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yes.
You want to talk crazy? My grandpa called it dope, which I guess was slang for pop. One point in time, and so people would come over the house. Yeah, you want a dope? And they would be like, "What?" So it's like,
wow.
You couldn't correct him.
I hadn't heard that one. That's fun.
I Googled it years ago, and it's like, no, that's actual slang for for a soda was dope back in the day, anyway. I guess, and he just kept with his times and where he was from. He didn't realize that other people were like, "What is he offering me exactly?" So yeah, it's fun times growing up there. So Jerry Lawler, though, he's talking about this Texas Death Match with Eddie Gilbert. He talks about it being no disqualification as the King teases using a Tennessee chain, perhaps some fire getting involved here. Lawler not yet ready to step down from his throne. So quite a build up here. We had the barbed wire match, and now that we've upgraded it, how do you upgrade a barbed wire match? A Texas Death Match, anything goes.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep ramping up the danger. So I don't know. I kind of feel like you jumped the gun with barbed wire. I feel like
that
almost
came a little
anything
fast.
is taking a step backwards.
Right.
As soon as we heard, that feud started, they did it. This is your life, and it came back in the next segment. Barbed wire match. I was like, geez, what are we doing? Like, let's slow down.
They had like one singles match, right? Like a normal wrestling match, and they escalated straight to barbed wire. It was like FMW.
Yes, that was crazy. And I guess the only way you can really sell the Texas Death Match is being more dangerous. It's like it could go all night, which I don't know. As a fan, it's not a plus for me. Like, damn, I don't want to sit in that metal chair all night. I mean, too much of a good thing.
I love these guys, but at the same time, I mean, what are they going to look like in an hour from now? I don't know that I want to watch them sit there and kind of crawl across the ring. So I get you totally. But
I got school the next day. Come on.
Oh, well, that may be a good reason to miss school. Hopefully they'll wrestle through school. That would be awesome.
That'd be a fun note to get your mom, right?
There you go. We go on. We heard from the King. Now it's time to hear from handsome Jimmy Valiant. Woo, Musa baby. Handsome Boogie Woogie here this week in the studio. And the one thing Jimmy Valiant knows is that it's Elvis Presley's birthday. He would be 50 now. Well, it might be his birthday. Now he's not sure. Maybe it was last week. Maybe it's next week. But he knows it's sometime around now. Gotta love Jimmy Valiant.
Only Jimmy Valiant can get away with that. But with Jimmy Valiant, you're like, yeah, we don't expect him to be,
no, definitely
with
not.
it.
God, I do love me some Jimmy. I grew up loving me Jimmy Valiant from the Crockett territory and whatnot. And I actually finally got to see him work a show here in Cleveland way back in like 1995. And I marked out like a damn, I'm a freaking teenager, brother. And I'm marking out because Jimmy Valiant had me stand up and give him the high fives, the two hand slaps, and then the booty bump, the old gimmick he used to do with his tag partners. And I got to do that with Jimmy Valiant. And I was like, oh, that was the awesomest thing ever. What a mark.
Well, here's a fun fact. I got to wrestle Jimmy Valiant 3 times.
Oh, did you do all the shtick? You do the test of strength, the middle finger.
So again, this is the year 2000. So we did all that paint by numbers. It was all the classic Jimmy Valiant spots. But the fun part for me was, and at this time I was completely clean shaven. I was 20 years younger than him. No matter how they introduced me to him, he always thought I was Bo James. I'd come up and he'd be like, Bo, baby, hey, what's up, man? And he would introduce me to people, oh, me and Bo James, baby, I've been knowing him for 25 years, and I was 21 at the time.
Incidentally, I mean, he should know Bo pretty damn well. But incidentally, Bo James was on that show as well that I saw Jimmy Valiant. It was actually 2 or 3 days in a row, those shows, and it was kind of an odd hodgepodge because you had some of the guys from the South come up, Jimmy Valiant, Manny Fernandez. Bo James was part of that early in his career, but also a very young Christian Cage and Sexton Hardcastle came down to work those shows. Johnny Swinger was on those shows.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a crazy mixture of talent for sure.
Absolutely. That's fun to know that Jimmy Valiant was on a show with those guys.
Yeah, imagine that. I don't think it happened, but man, Sexton Hardcastle, and I love that gimmick, by the way. If anybody has the old indie stuff with Edge, I like that far more than I ever liked Edge. It was a great character. Kind of goofy.
I was hoping we were getting Sexton Hardcastle instead of Adam Copeland when he came to AEW.
Oh, that would have been phenomenal, wouldn't it? For sure.
Absolutely.
So anyways, Boogie Woogie here. He's talking about Elvis's birthday for whatever reason. He's trying to make a point that he never gets to, but he does run down his opponent, his upcoming opponent, Iron Mike Sharpe. And I wrote, it's got to be a rib here because he goes in this promo saying that Mike Sharpe is Mr. Dirty, says he's never taken a shower or brushed his teeth. Now, of course, that's got to be an inside joke here because Sharpe's OCD on being clean is very well known. I don't know if you've heard the stories, Gene.
Oh yeah. That's the most famously relatable stories to Iron Mike Sharpe of anybody that's watched any shoot interviews or any kind of stuff like that. Most people know that. So I gotta think somebody like put Valiant up to that, like, hey, go out there and say he's dirty. Just because I don't know, maybe Valiant's sharper than I think, and he might have came to that his own conclusion. But I don't know. I get to see Lawler pull it, so I go, hey, go out there and say he's Mr. Dirty and he never showers. And it's like he's gonna go run the water out of his hotel after he leaves here today.
I was gonna say Mike Sharpe gonna probably go right back and take another shower after the promo here. But it's so funny he called him Mr. Dirty. You never took a shower, and the story is, if people don't know, I think it was Boston Garden, that Mike Sharpe got in the shower after his match in the first half of a card. And he was still showering after the main event, and they actually closed down the Boston Garden, and he got locked in there overnight.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. They would talk about how he would begin taking showers prior to intermission and still be there after the last match in the shower.
I mean, that's borderline a shower fetish almost. I mean, that's
it's something.
A whole other thing.
For sure. But Jimmy Valiant showing off his secret weapon for his rematch here with Sharpe the next time around as he holds up his very own arm brace, the same type of arm brace that Mike Sharpe wears. Jimmy Valiant has one on his as well now, and a kiss for Lancer there, who has a big laugh with Handsome Jimmy.
Fight fire with fire. We found out in the Coward Waves the Flag, whomever was in the corner felt compelled to wave the flag because he got beat down so badly, so brutally by that seemingly leather arm brace that, we assume is loaded. That he had to go get one of his own. And what better way to fight fire with fire, right?
Absolutely. So we get another rundown here of the big Monday night card after the Valiant promo. 5 big title matches plus a 10-man tag team match shaping up to be a big night there in the Mid-South Coliseum, Gene. And then, surprise, it's another Jerry Lawler interview because what's better than one Lawler interview? Why, 2, of course. And real quick, Jerry just wants to introduce a new wrestler to the territory by the name of Rock and Roll Buck Zumhoff. Yay. He says everybody's going to like this guy. So says the King, giving Buck a stamp of approval here. Apparently Buck called the Memphis office. It sounded like a shoot here when Lawler explained this. He called the Memphis office last week looking for work. And Lawler, I guess he put in the good word for him. So we have Jerry Lawler to thank for the pedo here in Memphis Wrestling.
Not going to touch that one because of the implications that could go along with it for other people involved. But anyway,
for that on the Lawler show.
I think, I think you're right. I think if there was ever a time where somebody just shot it straight and told the real story, I'm sure that is exactly how that played out.
Yeah, that sounded like a legit, hey, he was calling looking for work last week in the Memphis office, and Eddie Marlin said, hey, do you know this guy? And I said, yeah, he's cool. Go on and bring him in. So it's like,
man, I have to be honest. Like, all the real life stuff off the table that came out about that dude, what a scumbag he turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
I could not make myself give 1 ounce of a shit about Buck Zumhoff as a kid, even though he had the jam box and all of that. Every time he came to the ring, I left the room to go get a drink.
It just never worked for me. Never worked. It just looked like a white trash guy that should be roofing somewhere. I mean, really,
Yes.
I mean, and the story goes he hated rock and roll and he hated carrying around the boombox. I guess he was into like country, like, old school country. And and he hated the gimmick. He hated all of that, but it was what they gave him. And it was really the only thing that got him over with the people that he was over with. Although again, like you said, long before I knew any of this stuff came out, I was just never a fan to begin with.
So had he had his way, he would have been carrying around a radio listening to that John Denver song they played in the Terry Taylor video a couple weeks ago. But
Perhaps.
Instead, he had to play rock and roll.
Maybe a little Merle Haggard in there too, I'm sure.
There you go.
We go back to the ring. One more matchup here to the expiration of time. It's 6-man tag team action. Jimmy Valiant, Jerry Lawler, and Buck Zumhoff taking on the team of Jerry Bryant, the Executioner, and Joe Lightfoot. And Lawler going to start out holding his own against Lightfoot here as the fans begin chanting rock and roll. I wrote, if they only knew, Gene. As Jerry Bryant tags in and knocks the king flat on his ass. Oh, he's going to pay for that. Lawler back up and pops Bryant, who goes flying high into the air. It's as if his job depended on it. And the tag then made to rock and roll. Zumhoff, he's in with a running drop kick, rings Bryant's bell, and now Boogie's turn. In the ring, locking in the sleeper on Bryant, but in comes Lightfoot. So Boogie releases the sleeper on Bryant and locks it on Lightfoot. And then we continue the succession with the Masked Man comes in and he too gets the sleeper hold from Jimmy Valiant. So a fun little comedy bit there. And the Executioner doesn't tag in, but somehow becomes the legal man. As apparently it's Lucha Rules all day long here in the studio, Gene. This is the third match this is happening here in the last 90 minutes. As a double backdrop by the King and Zumhoff on the Masked Man, and Valiant dropping the big elbow, pinning the Executioner. 4 minutes and 13 seconds, one fall to close the show.
Mercifully, that was all we had to see of that match.
Yeah,
And
that was not very good. The Lawler-Bryant exchange, which lasted about 5 seconds, is probably the only thing I cared for there.
I'm proud because a friend of mine told me that he knew this match was coming up. He's kind of watching along with us, that I should make the joke that Lawler and Zumhoff met in middle schools. But I didn't, so I'm glad that I didn't, because I would have felt bad. We're not recording at this moment, are we?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. The mic is always live as we roll on. So we close out the TV program. Now, later that night in the fairgrounds in Nashville, January 19th, advertised card. I don't have the results, but the card looked like this. It was Buck Zumhoff taking on Johnny Wilhoit. The Battens still wrestling Stan Frazier in some of the towns. It's Frazier's where it's these stipulations where Frazier must beat both Battens in 10 minutes or give them $500. Also, the Dirty White Boys taking on Kevin Kelly and Adrian Street. Not as cool as Adrian Street and Frazier by any means. Also, Jimmy Valiant taking on Mike Sharpe in a stretcher match.
He wants to get in there, and he wants this stretcher. What do they call this, a stretcher match? Is this what they call this?
You got a title on the line. I know that.
Okay, it's not a stretcher match. This is a title match right here. Mid-American.
Wouldn't it have been awesome if he came back out? Okay, it's okay. Wouldn't it be awesome if he came back out later? He's like, yeah, I got a title match. And Lance is like, no, it's a stretcher match in Nashville. That would have been phenomenal if he screwed up. But here it is, stretcher match. He was right. He did have one coming up later that night, the same day as the TV program. So that's probably what he was thinking about here. This is the one that caught my eye. It's the Macho Man Randy Savage. And last week, he's basically playing Jerry Lawler versus Eddie Gilbert here in Nashville. Savage and Gilbert, barbed wire match. If Savage wins, he gets 5 minutes with manager Jimmy Hart. But really, I don't care about the Jimmy Hart part. Just show me Eddie Gilbert and Randy Savage in barbed wire.
No kidding. Like, that's fun, because I have never seen 1 ounce of footage in my life of Randy Savage in a barbed wire match.
No, I mean, and
That's
such
crazy to think about.
Such an odd matchup. Anyway, we talked about that before. Randy Savage and Eddie Gilbert. I don't know about me. It's just an interesting dynamic of a match I just don't recall ever seeing. So them working matches like a barbed wire match just really intrigues me. But like you said, the Macho Man and barbed wire, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I would have loved to see them have a full-on feud on the main show on TV to get the promos and the whole bit, because that could have been fun. But like you said, in this instance, he's just playing the role of Jerry Lawler in Nashville.
Kind of intriguing, too, that we see Randy Savage working a lot of these house shows, even the Coliseum, but he's not really appearing on TV at this point in time.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, are we already headed down that road of going away, or what's the reasoning there? Because, I mean, you think you want Savage on your TV as much as possible promoting anything he's doing, and it's just not happening.
Oh, well, obviously, he's cash money for sure. As we roll on to the following day, Sunday, January 20th, the Jerry Lawler Show, guys, it's back. We have it here this week, a special 11:30 start time, and it's Super Bowl Sunday, Gene. Yes, this year it's Joe Montana and the Niners defeating Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins, a very legendary game throughout Super Bowl history. Joe Montana and Dan Marino, even non-football fans have to know those names.
Oh, absolutely, because I'm not the least bit a football fan and don't follow it at all, but I remember all the hype surrounding that, and my friends were sure excited.
Yeah, Jerry Lawler probably a little bummed, along with me, that the Cleveland Browns did not make it, but that story continues to this day. As we continue on here in the show, in the studio, this is an odd one, the Dirty White Boys video going to play first by Foreigner. So much to say here about this music video, Gene. We'll get to that in just a minute. But it's going to be a sit-down interview in the studio with the Dirty White Boys, who Jerry Lawler refers to as a unusual treat. But I wrote, think about this. If you're familiar with Jerry Lawler, but you don't watch wrestling in Memphis, and then this sits down on the local morning talk show, this is what you're looking at. How do you explain that to somebody?
I don't know that you can. It was one of those things that you had to see it to really believe it, because it looked bizarre on
dressed
TV.
in full character, guys.
Yes,
which I get. I'm not even arguing that. I'm not saying they should have came out in suits or anything like that, but just on Sunday morning television, a talk show, it's a little bit removed from wrestling. Not all the way, obviously, he shills it here, but it's still odd. Now, let's talk about that music video for a minute if you want to. Just some of the odd... What was it with the Memphis videos where everybody had to point at the screen or do that? Like, where you think they're frozen in time, but then they start moving and their arm kind of swings to the screen. They give you that point. Even the Dirty White Boys are doing it here.
Yeah, they definitely, I mean, you could tell the same person was directing all these, and he had about 4 moves, like, all right, so this is where you point, and this is where, then they just kind of went through them in sequence. Boy, they don't age well, is all I can say.
Never mind that the Fabulous Ones are so far off from the Dirty White Boys, yet they're both doing the same exact poses. That's just odd. But, why not have them, steal a hubcap or something like that? Instead, we just see a wall with the words Dirty White Boys spray painted on it. We see the Confederate flag, which wasn't as bad of a thing back then. They're holding a spray paint can, so we have to presume they're the ones that did the painting, even though they don't actually show them do it. But, they're Dirty White Boys. Dirty White Boys. As Jerry Lawler going to address their past feud between the King and the Dirty Boys. But they've seen Jimmy Hart for what he is now, they say. Jimmy Hart made a lot of promises to them, but then he no-showed their first title match, and then he came out and cost them their second title opportunity as well. So the Dirty White Boys do what they want to do at this point, and Jimmy Hart, he simply couldn't take it anymore, so they kicked him to the curb. And so this week at the Mid-South Coliseum, it's going to be the White Boys taking on the Interns. And should they get the win, not only will they get those Southern titles, but they'll also get 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine them two getting 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart? I mean, that's would have been a good way to send Jimmy Hart out of town if we were already to that point. But of course, we're a little ways away from that, so
not too far.
Not too far, but of course, when it comes time to go, it has to be the King. But not to jump ahead. But I know as a fan, if I'm getting riled up at all this shenanigans by Jimmy Hart to the point that, fans are trying to go after him and things like that, I'm plopping down money for a ticket on the off chance that I might see both Dirty White Boys get 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart.
Sure. It was an easy go-to gimmick. We just talked about it in Nashville. Should Savage beat Eddie Gilbert in the barbed wire match, he was going to get 5. Now, there's 2 Dirty White Boys, right? But I'd rather see one Randy Savage get a hold of Jimmy Hart.
True. That is very true. Yeah, I guess if you told me like, well, you can fight the Dirty White Boys as a pair, or you can fight Savage, like I'll try my luck with the Dirty White Boys.
I guess I probably won't win either way, but yeah, exactly. I'll try my luck with Denton and Anthony here as they talk about getting cheers from the fans. Lynn Denton even sharing, I thought it was a shoot story here about a brawl in the Mid-South Coliseum. They'd wrestled up into the crowd when they were heels, and a fan landing what he called a good punch, but it didn't knock him down. He was proud of that. Jerry Lawler even recalls the story with him, which is why I have to assume it was true.
Yeah, and it seems like there's kind of a theme here where they're kind of wanting to address fans getting involved. And, I don't know. This comes up twice in 2 days' time here on the show. So.
Yeah, good point. So, as guests of the Jerry Lawler show, Gene, they receive gift cards to TGI Fridays. Wow. And a gym membership for a year. I don't know how legit that was, other than to get the name of the sponsor on the TV, but these guys receive gift cards to Fridays as they get about a third of the show's time here trying to get them over. But man, do you think any of that was legit? Any of the gifts they got for being on the Lawler show?
I don't know, but if you look at the Dirty White Boys as a gimmick, like it's like, okay, can we think of two things that there's no chance the Dirty White Boys are going to use? Probably not a gift card to TGI Fridays, and definitely not a gym membership.
Well, there's beer at TGI Fridays, so I'd like to. I envision them sitting there and having a few of those anyway. But he doesn't say how much the gift card is for. Yeah, tater skins and beer. Hell yeah, I'm in. I can see that. And again, I don't know how much the gift card was for. They made sure not to mention that on the TV program.
Yeah, I'm sure whatever it was probably better than your average Memphis payoff. So.
Well, true that, especially if if your name's not Jerry Lawler anyway. As exactly. We go on for the show, the Dirty White Boys leave us, and it's time for viewer mail.
We are back on the show, and it's time now for our viewer mail segment. And our question this week is from Jennifer Daniels of Martin, Tennessee. And the question is for me, and it says, Dear Jerry, I love your show, and I think you're a very, very sexy guy. Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer's 8 years old. No, I'm only kidding. It says, my question is for you, and why can't you keep your promise and get rid of the wimp, Jimmy Hart, once and for all?
As Jennifer writes in and calls Jerry Lawler a sexy guy. And it's at this point Jerry Lawler jokes that she's only 8 years old, guys. And I'll just leave that there, Gene, unless you want to take it.
It's like, call me back in 9 years.
Oh, my God. Jerry, what are we doing? What are we doing?
This isn't live. That's all I'm saying.
You'll see.
And the question is for me, and it says, Dear Jerry, I love your show, and I think you're a very, very sexy guy. Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer's 8 years old. No, I'm only kidding.
You guys can actually go watch this on YouTube. I'm not making this shit up. Jerry Lawler, of all people, says, Jennifer referred to him as a sexy guy, and he literally sits there and says, and she's only 8 years old. I was like, what the fuck?
Thank God her name wasn't Stacy.
Oh, no. Yeah, but of course, I'm just joking, guys. But I mean, in hindsight, just crazy. As the question this week is, will Jerry Lawler keep his promise and get rid of the wimp, Jimmy Hart, once and for all? Lawler's response, one of these days. And you don't know how true that's going to be. Supposedly, though, as we move on here, we were supposed to hear from Adrian Street as well, but he has not arrived in the studio, or at least that's the story. So instead, we get Troy Graham, a Troy Graham promo up on the video wall. And within seconds, Graham explains the mystery. Why did Johnny Wilhoit team with Jerry Lawler after he was eliminated in the Southern Tag Team title tournament? Who did he replace? Well, I suspected before it was maybe Steve-O, who was no-showing at the time, but apparently Troy, right here, asks Jerry Lawler, what happened to your partner, Austin Idol? So Idol apparently originally announced as Lawler's partner. So the mystery has been solved.
A whole no-show Jones himself, Austin Idol. Well, that checks out. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, I did write here in my notes, what a shock.
Yes.
Oh, darling, come on now.
I got a fun story for that one day, but we won't take time right now. But
okay, well, we'll save it. We'll save it for a lighter week, and we'll definitely get that in. I'll make sure to put that in my notes. Troy Graham, his interns, once again, the Southern Tag Team Champions. They talk about tomorrow night, the Mid-South Coliseum, the stipulation where the White Boys may get 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart. Off topic, though, Jerry asks who will win the Super Bowl, as Graham quips, who's in it? This ain't football. This is wrestling, baby. So, gotta love Troy Graham. But the way Lawler asked the question, it seemed like Troy really was a legit football fan. but his response was just, I loved it.
Yeah, it was perfect. I forget how much I enjoyed Troy Graham, but as we're watching these shows, I was like, gosh, man, he was good at what he did.
Underrated as one of the greatest promos ever.
Absolutely.
Just never really put into position to really, make money with it. But yeah, I mean, the guy was quick and he was good. And, it's unfortunate we've talked about that already and whatnot. But yeah, it was fun just sitting here. Jerry Lawler, straight shooting, because Lawler's a huge football fan. Everybody knows. Big baseball fan. The Cleveland Indians, well, Guardians now. I still call them the Indians, the Cleveland Browns. But he loves football. And I think he was really straight shooting here with the heel Troy Graham. And he was like, who do you think's going to win? And I love Troy Graham. Came right back. Didn't even take a second to think. I don't watch that crap, so it was great. This is wrestling, baby. And that's great sell.
I mean, what's a bigger heel move than to bury the Super Bowl? But he doesn't care enough to even know who's in it. There's people cussing their TV like, "What? How dare you?
How do you not know? There's only 3 channels back here."
Exactly.
Jerry Lawler then going to run down the Monday Night Mid-South Coliseum card, sells his match like he's just another person. He's like, "Oh, Jerry Lawler's in action, taking on Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in Texas." It was so weird hearing Lawler refer to himself like he's not Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, like he was some random announcer.
Right.
We weren't even seeing him there.
From there, we get another Adrian Street music video. This time it's Imagine What I Could Do to You. Now, that one creeped me out as a kid growing up. Imagine what I could do to you. As Jerry Lawler asks, he ain't right, is he? I wrote LOL. I love Lawler's response after the video. He just looked into the camera and said, he ain't right, is he?
It was perfect. And like we said about Troy Graham, make no mistake, Lawler's very quick as well, as we've seen over the years, but even back then. And if you've never listened to that song, Imagine What I Could Do to You from Adrian Street, go on YouTube and look up the video and listen to some of the things he names off. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it's something. I loved Adrian Street. I loved the character. I loved watching him work. I was always infatuated with him growing up. I loved his music videos. I marked out for Adrian Street, but for some reason, this particular video just gave me all the creeps, I guess. I just never really got into this one particular video from Adrian.
Yeah, it is definitely creepy, especially when you're a young person. But
sure.
I never paid for years. I never really paid it that close of attention. Then when I actually listened to some of the things he was saying, I could tear a telephone directory into, bending iron bars or something else I can do. And then there's like, always pick my teeth with the nearest billiard cue. And I'm like, that's random and strange. Like, that's not even tough. That's just saying you don't have, teeth.
Right.
That's an insult you would give somebody, like, you pick your teeth with a billiard cue. It's like something they'd say to the old pig pen there.
Break a door down with one hand behind my back. I can crush a grizzly till its bones begin to crack. I eat a dozen T-bones for my early morning snack. So imagine what I could do to you. I can tear a telephone directory in two. Bending iron bars is something else that I can do. I always pick my teeth with the nearest billiard cue. So imagine what I could do to you.
It's safe to say he probably wrote his own lyrics anyway, as Jerry Lawler claims that Adrian Street has arrived at the studio, but they don't have time for him now. And I'm not sure how legit any of that was. I don't know that Adrian was ever supposed to be there, or if he was, he likely never arrived, but Lawler using that for an excuse because we don't have time for Adrian Street, because up next on the program, it's Memphis area boxers, guys. And Gene, you won't believe this based on some of the other shows you've listened to me on, I'm sure, but I actually went to boxrec.com, so don't say I don't take my research seriously, guys, and I looked these two guys up, Gene, believe it or not.
I would expect no less from you, my friend.
You probably thought this was going to be like a throwaway 30-second deal, and instead I look up these guys here.
I was expecting you to go, yeah, and then he rambled on about some boxers. Anyway.
Yeah, there you go. So there's two guys. They come out, they speak with Jerry Lawler, young-looking kids at the time, Knox Brown and Robert Dixon. And I said, you know what? I'm going to Google their names, and if something comes up, I'm going to take notes. If it doesn't, that's fine. I'll move on. Sadly, unfortunately, things came up, so I took notes. So Knox Brown, the Caucasian of the two, he started back in 1983. And his record was 7-2 heading into this show. I just want to put some context on these guys. And they were selling out an upcoming boxing card a few days later at the Cook Convention Center, which is where Memphis would run sometimes if they couldn't get the Mid-South Coliseum. And so this guy actually goes on and he wins there as well. So this guy was pretty serious. He's got videos on YouTube. He even appeared on USA's Tuesday Night Fights. So this guy actually became a little bit of something.
Yeah, okay.
Meanwhile, I can't say the same for Mr. Robert Dixon. He started 1984, had a 3-0-1 record at this point here when he appeared on the show. Now he'll win again in 2 days' time at the Cook Convention Center, though he does lose his last 10 in a row before retiring. So Robert Dixon not as successful as Knox Brown, but Jerry Lawler promises them if they win their fights this Tuesday night, which they both do, then they'll be back in the show. I wrote, we'll see. Yeah, so
steer you wrong.
You never know who's going to appear in that last segment on the Jerry Lawler show. It just gets better every week. As we roll on now to the Mid-South Coliseum, January the 21st, advertised card, 5 championship matches, a night of champions, if you will. Now the undercard looks like this. Buck Zumhoff taking on Jerry Bryant, Kevin Kelly going against Leaping Lanny Poffo, and Johnny Wilhoit, scheduled to take on, well, his sometimes tag team partner, at least as of late, David Haskins. Also on the card, 10-man tag. Danny Hager, Joe Lightfoot, the Nightmares, and Playboy Frazier to take on the team of the Batten Twins, the Daydreamers, and Tojo Yamamoto. And remember, Gene, I said 5 title matches, including the Nature Boy, Buddy Landell, coming to town to defend his Central States title against the Macho Man. Boy, wouldn't that have been a match?
Wow, yes. I'm a big Buddy Landell
guy. Oh, as am
I. Would love to see that one.
I would have too. Also, international champion Terry Taylor back in town to defend his title against the exotic Adrian Street. Jimmy Valiant going for Mike Sharpe's Mid-American title. Remember, it is not a stretcher match, guys.
He wants to get in there, and he wants this stretcher. What do they call this, a stretcher match? Is this what they call this?
You got a title on the line, I know.
Oh, okay, it's not a stretcher match. This is a title match right here. Mid-American.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I pop every time I hear it. I try not to, and I can't help okay. So it is not a stretcher match, guys. They should have actually put that on the screen, blinking lights. Not a stretcher match, not a stretcher match. No, it's a title match. Mid-American title on the line. Mike Sharpe defending against Jimmy Valiant. Also, it's the interns defending the Southern titles against the Dirty White Boys. If you don't know by now, should the White Boys win, they'll get 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart. And the main event, Jerry Lawler defending his Southern title against Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in a Texas death match. Advertised ticket prices, $4, $5, and $6. My God. And under 10 years old, only $1 to hit this giant show. Amazing.
Man, I tell you what, this is the biggest card we've built up so far. We're 3 weeks in, and we've had some, decent cards, but man, title matches, Texas death match,
10-man tag,
3 championship matches, 10-man tags. I cannot wait to talk about this show, Ray. Let's get into it.
Well, let's do it. You tell them.
All right. So what you need to know about this card, folks, is it didn't happen.
Oh, you got to be shitting me.
No.
Snow.
Which is ironic because here where I live in the state of Alabama, half the state shut down because of snow for almost an entire week. We got lucky where I'm at, and it missed us. It was just deathly cold, but right above me in Huntsville and different places, they didn't go to work for over a week. And this was one of those instances in the South where it came a big snowfall and record cold temperatures.
Right.
And the big, gigantic card that we're all looking forward to did not happen.
And thus, Terry Taylor... There you go. And thus, Terry Taylor will keep the international title for another 6 or 7 months. Because I guess you have to imagine he was coming here to drop the belt to Adrian Street before he heads back down to the Mid-South, but it doesn't take place here. And sadly, some of these other matches like Savage and Landell, I don't know that we ever get that either.
No, there was a few matches on this card that just did not happen. It was just poof, gone.
Yeah, that's a total bummer here. The matches I was looking most forward to, we're never going to get to see. Now, we'll have to wait and see next week what they do with this Texas death match. We know Lawler's going to stick around. Eddie Gilbert's still going to be here for a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see if they reschedule that one, a little rain check for that match anyway or not. But for now,
Sharpe's going to be even more confused because he's going to be like, Now, is this a stretcher match? But since we didn't do the other match, is it not a stretcher match? I don't know, Lance. I'm confused.
Well, now I'm confused. I don't know what the hell's going on around here.
Oh, come on, Mike. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Go take a shower, Mike. Oh, okay. Yeah. So sadly, guys, the show doesn't take place. And like you said, it wasn't just snow, but record cold temperatures in the area at that point in time. So very, very icy weather, snow. I don't know the inches. I didn't watch Dave Brown at the time, so I don't know.
I was about to say Dave Brown should have known this was coming and gave us a heads up.
Yeah, Lance put Dave Brown over when he saw it coming, but when he didn't see it coming, no mention of it at all. That's all right.
Oh, come on, Davey. What are you doing?
Davey, come on now. Oh, man. Okay, we got one more piece of business here, guys, before we wrap it up here this week, Gene, and that's off to the Louisville Gardens. We couldn't talk about the Coliseum, so at least we'll get in the Gardens here the following day, January the 22nd. The attendance, however, only 2,200 fans. That's just over a third full here in the Gardens. Now, a schedule for the card, it was supposed to be 6 big matches. And yes, guys, I'm not gonna throw you for another swerve. The show actually does take place, just some of the talent doesn't make it here, but 6 matches originally scheduled for the card. Buck Zumhoff versus Kevin Kelly. So you have a guy pretending to be a prisoner versus a guy who is currently in prison. So should that match have taken place, neither guy actually winds up showing up for this matchup. Also, return matchup. No disqualification, no time limit. What an odd match. Lanny Poffo versus Joe Lightfoot. Wouldn't you like to know what happened the first time around?
Boy, don't you know, if there's 2 guys on a card where you're like, man, let's throw out the DQs. Let's throw out the time limit. Let's let these guys just throw down and fight. Joe Lightfoot and Lanny Poffo.
Feels like something you would stick in a main event at a high school or something along those lines.
Yes. We're coming to the side of the road in BFE, Tennessee, and we're going to have a no DQ, no time limit, Joe Lightfoot versus Lanny Poffo. And, of course, the undercard is Buck Zumhoff versus Kevin Kelly.
Now, I won't leave you guys in suspense. Joe Lightfoot also doesn't make the show, so Lanny Poffo going to actually take on someone else. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Now, only 3 guys missed this show. It's Zumhoff, Kelly, and Joe Lightfoot here. But unfortunately, we don't get that no DQ, no time limit matchup. We'll have to wait and see if they bring it back next time around. Also on the card, Randy Savage taking on Adrian Street. Would love to have seen that. And $500. The Nightmare's putting up $500. So wait a minute. They have as much together as Playboy Frazier does by himself. Well, he's got all those nuggets and whatnot, I guess.
He is shaking the nuggets off right now, Randy.
But it's the Nightmares putting $500 up against the Masks of the Daydreamers, who simply don't appear enough on Memphis TV.
No, I mean, they were shoving them down our throats there at first, and, now they're just popping up on these cards, but we're not seeing them on TV. How are we supposed to stay excited?
Got to keep Buck Zumhoff on the TV screens, I suppose. Also,
Buck Zumhoff found out this card wasn't going to happen at a school and backed out at the last moment.
Wow. Well, woof. Is that what happened? Okay. Well, it could be true. The Interns taking on the Dirty White Boys, another gimmick with the 5 minutes Jimmy Hart deal. And then in the main event, Iron Mike Sharpe and Eddie Gilbert teaming up to take on the pair of Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant in a Texas Death Stretcher match. And the only way to win there, you have to send out one of your opponents on a stretcher. So Mike Sharpe, all sorts of confused.
Well, I was going to say, why didn't we just go ahead and throw the barbed wire in there, too, just to hit all 3 of the recent match stipulations?
Well, for Jerry Lawler, yes, but maybe Mike Sharpe doesn't want to get near the barbed wire. Who knows? Maybe he declined. I know what you guys are paying me or aren't paying me. I'm not doing that.
Do you know how long I'll have to shower after a
oh, my God. Could you
barbed wire match if I get bloody?
Oh, and somebody else's blood? My God. Be in the shower all night.
Oh. the great Kentucky water shortage of 1985. I
was going to say. Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, before we get to the results here in the Louisville Gardens, right now we're going to go off to Lance Russell standing by with a few promos here. He's going to talk to Troy Graham, the Interns, Jimmy Hart, Iron Mike Sharpe, and Eddie Gilbert.
Whoa, we're talking about Tuesday night, Louisville Gardens, and what a wild night that's going to be. Dirty White Boys against Troy Graham's Interns. And if they can beat the interns, they get 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart.
Well, don't be so negative, please. Let me tell you something. We talked on the phone earlier. This is the money that we wanted, right, to take care of Jimmy Hart?
Baby, that's it right
That's
there.
right.
Mean green.
No, 5 minutes. 5 minutes in the ring, dirty white boys.
Love of money, baby. You have nothing to worry about. You're safe. There's a baby in this mammy's arms. Louis Wolf, KY. We're coming, baby. We got the green. Here, hold on.
Tuesday night in
After all, I took care of you when you were in the family. Look, some extra money for these guys, but just in case, I'm going to be at ringside, and Iron Mike and Eddie are going to be watching my back, too.
Iron Mike and Eddie have got themselves a handful with Lawler and Valiant in a Texas Tornado stretcher match. All 4 men in the ring, and that means that you go until somebody's carried out on a stretcher.
Sure, Lance. You know, Jerry Lawler's got more guts than what I thought. He's got about that much, because last week I left him for the buzzers in that barbed wire match. Now what he does, he goes out and he gets his friend Jimmy Valiant involved in one of the most dangerous matches in wrestling, which I am very happy to have him in, because Iron Mike's my partner, and we're not just going to have one of them leaving on a stretcher, both of them.
Yeah, falls don't count. Just go until somebody...
That's all right. That's our kind of match, you know. We're tough individuals. We train hard, and we're psyched up for this type of match. But those guys right there, they're going to be surprised when we get in there. You know, it's going to be all 4 at once, right?
That's right.
Falls don't count.
That's right.
And you got to be carried out on a stretcher. Well, it's not going to be us. Right, Jimmy? Nobody's
It's going to be a McKnight right there in Louisville, baby.
So a couple things there. First of all, you got to love Troy Graham talking about, you know, Jimmy Hart's going to be as safe as a baby in his mammy's arms. You got to pop for that. I got to start using that
was
line.
the highlight.
Absolutely the highlight. And my other takeaway was, you know, we already had our fun with Mike Sharpe. Oh, okay, he just kind of dismisses things. But he said here cut a promo, and he refers to them as, we're tough individuals. It's like he doesn't really cut a wrestling promo. He's just talking like a normal human being.
Yes. He sounds so every time he opens his mouth, he sounds so out of place. Like you said, he doesn't sound like a wrestler. He sounds like just a normal human, but also just, especially in the South, you know, the way you're used to hearing these promos. And,
right.
Let me tell you something, baby, and all that. And he's like, we're two tough individuals who's going to be, yeah. And the thing is, he's got Jimmy, like, why is he talking as much as we've heard? Why have we heard him talk so much? He's got Jimmy Hart. Shut up.
You know, learn your place there. Yeah, but they're trying with him. I got to give him that much anyway. Mike Sharpe hanging around for now here in the Memphis territory. But did you catch that Jimmy Hart handing off the money once again to Troy Graham? Do you think it was the same 1,000? Like Troy gave it back and Jimmy had to hand it to him again here? Or is Jimmy paying him again for the promo?
I don't know. After it went down the front of his pants and on TV, I hope it's a different 1,000, even if he got the other back.
Could you imagine Troy Graham rolling back after the segment where they stuff the money down his pants and he rolls up to Jerry Jarrett? You want it? You come get it, boy.
I feel like as soon as I seen him shove it down the front of his pants, I felt like that was the rib. Like when he got back there, like, you want this money back? No, keep it, Troy.
He probably pulled it out and split it 3 ways with the dirty white boys for the spot. Thanks, guys. As we head off now to the results here. It's the Nightmares $500 versus the Masks of the Daydreamers, presumably Steve Constance and Tim Ashley under those hoods. But it is the Daydreamers scoring the win here over the Nightmares, Ken Wayne and Danny Davis on a disqualification. Well, at least it was only $500, so they kept it real, but on a DQ, does that mean they still get the money?
You don't win a title on a DQ, so I wouldn't think you'd win the money, but who knows?
Lots of money being
Memphis.
passed around here in Memphis.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you'd have money in two different match stipulations, but everybody can relate to money, and fans can relate to money, I guess, even more than a championship belt. So I guess that's why they went to that so often.
Well, we were supposed to have 6 matches on the card. Of course, the entire Zumhoff-Kevin Kelly match canceled. Neither guy in town. Don't really know what happened. It may have been the weather. I'm not really sure. But also missing from the show was that no DQ, no time limit match as Joe Lightfoot misses the show, and taking his place is Brad Batten, as we're going to see Leaping Lanny Poffo defeat one half of the Batten twins here on the undercard. Also, the Macho Man Randy Savage battling exotic Adrian Street to a no contest. Show goes on. Southern Tag Team Champions, the Interns. Looks like the other intern now out of surgery. Troy Graham in their corner. The Interns defeating the Dirty White Boys. Remember, if the Dirty White Boys had won, they would have got 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart, but the Interns seem to have their number. They win almost every time.
Yeah, I mean, the Dirty White Boys are getting nothing in this feud so far. It's kind of lopsided.
They're like the Tommy Dreamer of the feud.
Exactly.
As we close out the card, wow, I would like to see the finish to this. I don't want to see this match, but the finish maybe Eddie Gilbert and Iron Mike Sharpe defeating the team of Jimmy Valiant and Jerry Lawler in a Texas Tornado stretcher match. Who do you think? I guess Jimmy would have had to have been stretchered out, right?
Oh yeah, I would assume so. And just with the card being so altered, you didn't get the 6 big matches that we originally thought we was going to get exactly.
Right.
I'm just surprised to see the heels sweep the last 2 matches there.
Oh, good call.
We want to send them home happy to kind of counteract some of that. But hell, we didn't even let Savage didn't even beat Street. We went to a no contest there. So.
Yeah, kind of a bummer of a night overall, and maybe they looked at the card and said, 2,200 fans. Maybe they said, well, we don't have to give them everything, but you would think you would want to get more in there next time. Everybody goes back to work, goes back to school, and talks about what a great card. And maybe, you draw a little more next time around. I'm not really sure what the logic was, but good call. Odd booking.
I don't think anybody went to school and was like, it was great. Lanny Poffo won. I mean, everybody else lost, but Poffo won.
Lanny Poffo, and it wasn't even the no DQ match.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yes, the Daydreamers won, so I'm sure that sent everybody home.
There you go. So as we begin to wrap up the show here this week, kind of eventful. We break the ring ropes there in the studio, and Jerry Lawler has the Dirty White Boys in the studio there on the Jerry Lawler show. The Mid-South Coliseum card canceled, and we try to make the best of these shows as we can, Gene. We do everything we can to make it entertaining, even if Mother Nature's wreaking havoc on these episodes so far.
Yeah, I mean, really, Mother Nature really stuck it to us on that one. But I do have to say, you mentioned the rope break. Kudos to them for getting it together in time that when they pitched a commercial, the slow-mo of him taking that brutal bump over the rope with the rope breaking was what they went to the break with in slow motion. It looked just as bad in slow motion as it did.
I don't know. I didn't even think technology, at least in a wrestling world, was up to that speed yet. But man, you had to imagine as soon as it happened, somebody was like, "Oh, get that! We're gonna air that. Go and grab a clip."
Yeah, I was surprised as soon as that music hit, and then that popped up. I was like, "Oh man, they got that quick." I mean, you don't think nothing about that these days, but as
I
just
didn't.
mentioned,
Yeah, I'm glad you caught that.
That's pretty quick.
No, that's a good call. So we asked a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks here on the show, and we had a bunch of them answered this week, and there's actually going to even be more next week as we continue on. But we asked, how did the interns beat the Dirty White Boys in the first round of the Mid-South Coliseum tournament? Well, now we know Jimmy Hart gets involved. Why was he given the international title if he was leaving the territory? Well, we have to presume he was supposed to lose it here this week if the show wasn't canceled. How did Mike Sharpe beat Jimmy Valiant? We pondered that in the Coward Waves the Flag match. Apparently he simply beat him down with his loaded brace, the loaded brace O'Doom. And then why did Johnny Wilhoit team with Jerry Lawler after being eliminated with Jerry Bryant in the match before him? Well, Austin Idol, a no-show, darling.
Wait, the interns are going over, darling? No.
You bringing me in and I'm getting eliminated in the first round, darling? Oh, no.
Cashed in his ticket and went back to the house.
I'm so sure. You mean it's like, you mean I'm not getting paid for championship money? Oh, well, it's just a first round match, Idol. I thought you could do me a solid. Oh, Austin Idol doesn't do solids, baby. But again, one of my favorites of all time. So, I'm just having a little fun there, guys. But, a spade is a spade. We'll just have a little fun in between.
He's one of those guys that I was a big fan of as a kid, and then I got the opportunity to be around him enough as an adult that not a fan. Yeah.
They say never meet your heroes. I met a few guys. I wouldn't even necessarily call them heroes, but I was around a few guys that I was like, wow. I certainly changed my opinion on them. But I mean, it is what it is. Then you meet great guys: Tracy Smothers, Bobby Eaton, Harley Race.
Yep. Some people more than lived up to. I mean, I know this is totally off topic of anybody we've talked about, but I just want to throw this out here. I don't know if you ever got a chance to meet Roddy Piper, but I got the opportunity to meet Roddy Piper 2 different times, and he was the nicest human being I've ever interacted with in my life. And he acted like he was more excited to meet me and my wife than we were to meet him, and just the greatest guy ever. And so that's always top of my list. If anybody ever says, like, who's the coolest person you ever met? Always, hands down, without a second thought, Roddy Piper.
Oh, that's pretty damn cool. I never, had the pleasure of meeting him in that capacity to where I actually had a conversation or anything like that. So that's pretty cool to hear. That's really cool. And sadly he passed away out of nowhere. So that was kind of crazy. We're going to get ready to wrap up here, guys. And hey, we'll just get out of the way right now, Gene, since we'll close out the week. There's no matches here. I don't have any lineups, but I wanted to point out some interesting shows here on January the 25th for the Memphis territory. Friday, January 5th, 1985. A couple of shows. One in Camden, Tennessee. Tickets at Fry's Drug, Melton Drug, Tasty Freeze, and it's going to be taking place at the Camden High School. But I had to pop when you could head down to the local Tasty Freeze and buy yourself up some Rasslin tickets.
Heck yeah, that's where I'm getting my Rasslin tickets. I'm getting a milkshake and 2 tickets to the Rasslin.
But Fry's Drug is just the thing. I don't care. I want to go to Tasty Freeze. I want to say I got my tickets from Tasty Freeze. Damn it.
Exactly.
Also, January the 25th, the Civic Center in Forest City, Arkansas. Tickets at Parker's Furniture. Actually go to the furniture store to pick up your tickets there in Forest City.
This is off totally out of left field, but I had a half brother who lived in Arkansas. He used to come and spend like Christmases and summers with us, and we used to always go and meet his mom in Forest City, Arkansas. We happened to end up in Forest City one time when Memphis Wrestling was going to be there, and actually got to check out a Memphis Wrestling show in Forest City, Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
Around this time, it actually would have been the next year, would have been in 86. So random as hell, I know, but there you go.
Who headlined? You remember?
That one was Lawler and Buddy Landale in a single. It was scheduled to be a tag. It was supposed to be Buddy and Bill Dundee against Lawler. I don't remember who. It wasn't. You would think it'd be Dutch. It wasn't Dutch, but it was supposed to be Lawler and somebody against Bill and Buddy, and it ended up being Lawler and Buddy in a single.
Okay, and, I wouldn't complain too much about that, I guess.
I mean, you think of anybody in the tag match that would have no-showed, you would have thought it'd been Buddy over Bill. Just, given
I thought you were going to say Austin Idol.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could have been maybe Otto was supposed to be Lawler's partner that night. He didn't show, but
imagine that.
But no, Lawler and Buddy Landale.
So
I was let's say 86. I was 9 years old.
Okay, so. Yeah, I would have definitely enjoyed that for sure. But we're going to wrap things up right now, Gene. But next week, I just wanted to point out we're going to go through the results, the TV, the Mid-South Coliseum, and again the Louisville Gardens. And next week, upcoming at the Louisville Gardens, guys, the Southern Tag Team Title Tournament is upcoming. Yes, you're going to ask, didn't that just happen, Ray? Well, yeah, it did, but only in the city of Memphis. You see, they're going to make the rounds at least to the Louisville Gardens. So we're going to see the tournament yet again. So the champion's currently vacant. The title's vacant still in Louisville. We're going to get another tournament. Who do you want to guess wins that one?
Man, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for the best for the old dirty white boys this time around.
Well, I hate to break the news to you guys, but a lot of the teams that were involved in the first one, not involved in this one, which makes it even harder for the same team to come out twice in a row. However, the Rock and Rolls, they won't be there. But in their place, the fabulous ones, Stan and Steve, going to return here next week to the Memphis territory.
Hey, all right. That's good.
I'll take that. So, yeah, we're going to wrap it up now here, guys. I do appreciate it again, Gene. I love getting through this one with you. Again, it was a rough go. We had no Mid-South Coliseum show. Great build, great card, and nothing. So that was really unfortunate.
Yeah, man. All this build up. We had all this fun building up to this huge card, and then, it's like going on a date and going home frustrated. We'll just put it like that.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, it was very unfortunate, but again, we'll see if they bring some of these matches back. I hope they do, and I'm not saying that facetiously. I really don't know without looking, again, what we see next week at the Mid-South Coliseum. So hopefully we see some of this transpire. I know we won't get some of those matches, but maybe we'll still get a Texas Death Match before too long. Maybe we won't. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, guys, but we'll be back soon. More Jerry Lawler's show. Also, Gene, as the car show going to be in town next week.
Oh, that should bring some great guests. And let me just say before we go, I'm holding out hope and crossing my fingers that if nothing else, we at least get our promised no DQ, no time limit Joe Lightfoot, Lanny Poffo match.
Oh, they better bring that back to the Louisville Gardens next week or I'll riot.
Exactly.
All right.
I'm surprised people didn't storm the ticket booth. That match didn't happen.
Refund. All right, guys, we're going to close it out now. Gene, I appreciate you taking the time and getting this one in. It's always a pleasure. It's always a fun time talking more Memphis wrestling from back in the day. Looking forward to closing out the month of January next time around.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine. And yes, I look forward to seeing how we close this month out and how we start to head into February.
Hey, before we split, do you got anything out there you want to promote?
Just, check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Retro Wrestling Network. We've been kind of slow putting up matches, but we do put out the OWF Outlaw Wrestling Federation with Whitey Jenkins. And again, that's kind of the comedy parody wrestling that me and Bob Anderson do for fun. So if you like silliness like that, please check that out. Beyond that, everything else I'm doing is stand-up shows and whatnot that I don't know that anybody listening would care to go to or be able to go to. But hopefully it's going to build towards getting out there into some bigger places. And, as this show continues to grow, maybe at some point I'll sell some comedy tickets based off this. For right now, sticking pretty close to around Birmingham, Huntsville, Gadsden area. So
right on.
Hopefully my goal for this year is to head out of state a little more and start branching out. So you never know.
All right. Well, keep us informed here. And, of course, Gene Jackson on social media. And you can catch me as well on social media, guys. Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. Gene's on Facebook as well. I don't know if he'll friend you, but you can try.
I'll friend most anybody, just about. Gene Jackson 95. And unless you look like this is just complete freak weirdo, I'll add you. And then if you immediately message me and ask me to join a group or demand something of me, I'll block you. So
Thank you.
Be aware.
Thank you. Ditto. That goes for me as well. Nothing I hate worse than somebody that friends me just to send me invites. Ain't happening,
Thanks
guys.
for the ad. Now join my group.
Yeah, you guys will be unfriended as fast as Andre the Giant gave up that WWF title. And it wasn't very long. So.
Whoa, wrestling.
Tag team championship. Oh. All right. It's getting late. We better get off this thing. I want to thank you guys again for listening to the Memphis Wrestling version of the Regional Wrestling Podcast. And once again, thank you so much, Gene Jackson.
Thank you.
All right, and that will wrap it up here this week on Regional Wrestling. Going to be back soon. More Georgia 81, more UWF 86, and more Memphis 85 right around the corner. And of course, as always, I am your host, Ray Russell. You can follow me on X at Rasslin Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, Facebook.com/Rasslin Grenade. And we'll be back soon with more Regional Wrestling, where we talk the territories.